If you're pressing your seams open, this won't really matter. So if you want to spin your seam, don't do this. Don't press your seam open. Instead, just press your seam to one side. I press the seam to the darker fabric here. Same thing with this one, pressing the seam to the darker fabric. So because I'm sewing a 4-patch here, I'm just going to nest the seam, and let me sew this on real quickly. So the trick to this is to make sure that you got your seams going all in the same direction. So here I have it going in a clockwise direction, where this, if I didn't have this middle seam here, this would be pressed over that way. We got this seam coming down. This one will go to the left. This one is going up. So all the seams will be in a clockwise rotation. You could do it the opposite way if you needed to, but that's kind of the key. Having all your seams pressed and going in the same direction, that's the biggest hint that I can give to you. When you have that, then all you really need to do is just take your seam the last seam that you just sewed, and then press. I'm pressing this one up, I'm pressing this one in the opposite direction. Then that middle should pop open. Sometimes for me, because I sew, my stitch length is only 1.5 millimeters. It's kind of tight. If you do like a 2 or a 2.5 millimeter stitch, you can kind of get that middle to just kind of pop open fairly easily. But if it doesn't, just take your seam ripper and just kind of pluck the stitches out, and then it'll lie flat. Okay. The other thing you commonly see me do, and this is why having a second example is good here. So here is the last seam that I sewed. The stitches within this area, this is where they're gonna pluck those stitches out, and you can do it all the way up to the seam, this last seam that you just sewed. Okay, so you do that one there. You can do this one here, in which I'm just gonna take this, pluck it out sometime, and it would be easier if I used a bigger stitch length, but because I stitch on a 1.5, the stitches are pretty tight together, so it's not so easy for me to pluck it out, which is why a lot of times I will just take the seam and try and pop it open like that. But if you do pluck it out, you'll have an easier time getting it to open.